So today's beef industry contributes less than 4% of total greenhouse gas emissions. If every American were to go meatless on Mondays, like so many of these politicians are trying to push.
Hey guys, thank you so much for supporting us and watching our videos. If you'd like to support us some more and get some of our merchandise like this awesome apron, be sure to check out our website at thecarnivorerevolution.com. Hey everybody, welcome to the Carnivore Revolution. I'm Serena, and my special guest today is Amanda Radke. Amanda is a fifth-generation rancher in South Dakota, a public speaker who believes in freedom. In 2012, she was recognized as a top 10 beef industry leader by the Cattle Business Weekly. She is a mom, a wife, and a carnivore. Thank you so much for visiting the Carnivore Revolution, Amanda.
I'm so excited to be chatting with you today.
Yeah, I'm really excited too. This has been in the works for a while and we finally have worked it out.
I know it. I know it. It seems like I'm always on the road speaking. And so like every week I'd be like, oh, I just can't. And so it's Thanksgiving week as we're recording this. And it's like, I'm home. This is good. So.
Yep, that's exactly right. So I like to start with people's story, like what led you to, I mean, obviously you're a cattle rancher. So, but what led you to only eating meat for your diet?
Well, I had to hit rock bottom really to find carnivore, even though I grew up raising beef cattle and, had an abundance of exactly what my body needed. But just like everybody else, the ranching community is told to follow the USDA dietary guidelines and to count your calories and eat 9 servings of bread and all the things. And so growing up, I was always heavier or overweight and really just no matter how much I dieted and exercised, I just could not lose weight. And as I entered into my 20s, I just got sicker and sicker. My husband and I got married and wanted to start a family, and I couldn't get pregnant. And I found myself on, I was pre-diabetic. I was on thyroid medicine. I was just really, really unhealthy. I was having to cancel speaking events just because I was not doing well at all. And I had gone to, 5, 6 doctors, and every single doctor wanted to put me on antidepressants. And I was like, I'm not depressed. I'm sick. Like something's going on with me. And my weight was fluctuating wildly. And I had stumbled upon zeroing in on health, which was like the OG platform for carnivores. Like, I don't know, just by miracle, I found this group of people eating meat, people like Charles Washington and Kelly Hogan. And I told them my story, and they said, just try eating meat for a little bit. And to me, that was such a foreign concept of like, just eat meat and eat like as much as I want. Like, this doesn't make sense. I'm used to counting calories. Like, what do you mean eat 2-3 pounds of meat a day? Like, this is nuts. But I did. And so I started carnivore in 2013. 2013 in April. And within a few months, I was pregnant and got off all medications, lost 60 pounds, like almost instantly. Like, even though I was pregnant, like lost all the extra weight that was just, I was so inflamed, felt a million times better. And then I ended up being super fertile and having 3 kids back to back, 2 years apart. And so it was a wild transformation. But I don't think I could have done that without the reassurance of some really seasoned carnivores that were like, yeah, this is healthy for you. And yes, this is healthy for your babies while you're pregnant. And it was just such a drastic thing. And like I said, the solution was in front of me the whole time. It was in my deep freeze with the beef my family raises. So a really happy accident, I guess, but ultimately just wildly changed my life.
Yeah, it's just, for me, I know, and I see it and you see it, seeing people having such a hard time getting past how is it possible that eating all of that red meat and all of that stuff that clogs your arteries can be healthier than a big, beautiful, colorful salad. And it's so hard. And then I try to say, well, you think that because that's what we've been taught. That's what I taught my kids.
Yeah.
That's what we've been taught. We think
low fat dressing and all the veggies.
That's right. We think those things are healthy because we've been told that. What if we were told wrong? And people just have such a hard time. So you see it, I see it, we see all of the sick people complaining about how sick they are. They really want to be better. They want to, they just don't know what to do. And so that's really hard. What do you tell people who are like, I mean, obviously you tell them to do what you did, people that were in the same position and we're just really having a hard time understanding how it's even possible for this to work.
So I have friends that I coach all the time. I mean, I'm not doing it on a public platform like you or Kelly or some of these great carnivore voices are. I'm in the ranching community, and it when I go to these agricultural conferences even, and people find out I just eat beef. It's like they just can't even wrap their heads around it. And I'm like, you guys, you raise the most nutrient dense product in the world, period. Like, it is a superfood. Forget kale. Like, what you do is life-saving. It's amazing, and we don't even know it. And I guess what I tell people is just give it 30 days. Like, okay, you're sick, you have IBS, you're inflamed, you have all these health problems. Do a 30-day challenge and just see how your body feels. And don't I think the biggest thing that people can't get over is just eating as much as you want. That it's like you need to eat till your body is satiated, because your body is malnourished and it doesn't know what real nutrition is, and it's going to continue to be in that kind of like starvation mode of like, I need more. So give your body the fuel it needs, and everything will just kind of settle in. But you got to get over that hump, right? And so I just tell people, yep, when you think you're tempted or you think you're going to fall off the wagon while you're doing this 30-day challenge, just go eat some pepperoni or go eat some cheese or eat something, eat a little more, and you'll get past that. But it's getting over that hump that's hard. And I also think the hardest thing, and it was for me in the beginning too, was just mourning the loss of foods that were part of like rich family traditions. So like Christmas was really hard for me because, oh, you're giving up sugar cookies, and we would make them with mom, and it was this big to do. And so I just learned, hey, I can be really popular at Christmas events when I bring these like boss food, like meaty items, because there's a million carbs on the table, but I'm bringing the protein, and that becomes very unique and exciting for people. And so I just had to learn to make new traditions and kind of mourn some of those things. But now I tell people, if you can get over all of that, it's like autopilot to me. Like, I don't even, I've been doing it 10 years now. I don't even think about it. It's like, this is food and fuel. And that's roughage for the cows. I don't even, there's no temptation. There's no willpower required. It's just, I eat this food that makes me feel good. And what I have found now, 10 years later, is I can run on a lot less sleep. I have so much energy. I don't have like the afternoon slump like other people where I have to take a nap or I have to rest. Like, I am this energizer bunny that can just go, go, go. And so that as a busy rancher, business owner, speaker, and mama four, it's like my secret superpower. It's my secret weapon to just get stuff done. Like, just eat meat and you'll be great.
Yeah. And if you don't believe us, go ahead and take a plate of bacon to a potluck. Trust me.
Yeah, exactly.
You'll be the most popular person there. We were at a basketball tournament over the weekend, and everybody was snacking, on carbs and stuff. And I pulled a bag of bacon out of my bag, and I was like, anybody want some bacon? And one of the moms said, no, thanks. I had bacon for breakfast. I said, I did too. You want some? I was like,
right? Like, what's the problem here?
have as much bacon as you want.
Yep.
Really, it's okay. Just eat the bacon. So what do you think about so for you, what is the reason that you stayed carnivore, and have you added any other foods back in? Have you done that, or you are still just meats?
So probably in the first year, I did experiment a little bit with like, I just want to be normal. I remember I ate and that's the thing. I think people that maybe don't notice the immediate reactions to some of these foods, maybe they're lucky or maybe they're not. But for me, it was so obvious my body did not do well on other foods that it made it easy to stay away. So I had a salad at a wedding after I'd been carnivore for maybe 6, 8 months. And I ended up having to go home early. Like, I immediately got sick. I got the worst headache. Like, my stomach just was not happy. And I was like, I have to go home. And I left the wedding at like 7:30 because I was just I couldn't believe a salad would make me feel that crummy. And then later mourning some of these foods, I ate a donut maybe a year in. And I felt like I had the flu for a week. I was down in bed. I slept for, I don't know, 16, 18 hours. Like, I just was out. And so to me, it was like, what a blessing that the reaction was so strong, because it was just like, nope, it's just not going to work for me. And some people I think would hear that and feel sorry for me or be like, oh, that's a terrible way to live. But truly, like, I don't know how to explain to people. It's a life of freedom where I'm not looking at food as entertainment. I'm not looking at food as, it's not comfort food. It's not emotional food. It's fuel. I feel like a lion or a bear. It's like, I eat what I need to. It's the best food you can possibly eat. Like it doesn't feel sacrificial. And then I move on with my life and it's great.
Yeah, I mean, we're eating foods that make us feel good, give us all the vitamins and nutrients that we need, and we don't crave other things. So, like, what's the problem? But people, like you said, they have such a hard time
Mhm.
letting go of the ideas that they already had and letting go of their habits and letting go of that addiction.
Well, and I think if you just look at the grand picture of things, Americans have never been more sick, overweight, cancer, diabetes, heart disease, and yet the dietary guidelines continue to double down, do more of this. I would say when the dietary guidelines were made in the 80s, it has been the worst human experiment in the history of our lifetime. It has led to so many problems in this country. And now the dietary guidelines look a lot like there's other things factoring into it. So the committee is very compromised. The lobbying machine is huge, and now they're basing some of their nutrition recommendations on things like animal welfare or climate change. And so a lot of this nutritional science that's coming out is very it comes from a lot of persuasion, a lot of agendas. And the unfortunate reality is it impacts our schools, our daycares, our military, our hospitals, our retirement homes. And so a lot of people are being forced to eat in a way that's contradictory to human history and health. So if we look back to even before, people think traditional eating as like growing a garden, canning all these vegetables and living off the land. Okay, that was maybe 100 years ago, but look back 300 years ago, 400 years ago. How did the Inuit eat? How did people on the range eat? The Native Americans in South Dakota, what did they eat? Maybe they stumbled upon some berries once in a while, but they weren't gardening. They were hunting buffalo and eating that buffalo nose to tail. And they were healthy and lean and strong until well, and we're thinking about this Thanksgiving time, so there's a lot of history there. But until the settlers came along and said, here's sugar, here's flour. And then what has happened since then? And so if we look back on just the history of time, I don't think there are ancient vegetarians, but without question, there are ancient carnivores.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I think people a lot of times argue with me about that same point because I will say that all the time. Like they came across some berries. They didn't have modern agriculture like we have now with, huge gardens and huge, multi-mile fields of foods. People will say, but those people died early. Like those people didn't have a very long lifespan. Well, that's because we didn't have modern conveniences, right? We didn't have modern medicine. And I do think there's a place for modern medicine.
Yep.
They couldn't get away from the animals that were,
They
that were
lived in
the
tents
prey.
in the middle of the prairie. Like
Yeah.
stuff got weird sometimes. Like I mean, they're having their babies out in the grass somewhere. Like of course
Yeah,
lifespan like different.
yeah, and there are certain modern things that we need, but processed foods are not one of them. I mean, that's the big thing is that the processed foods and the sugar, those are the things that we absolutely don't need, the things we can absolutely live without, and we can thrive without those things.
Mhm.
We just have to get people to quit eating them. But because of this narrative, this vegan, plant-based, save the animals, save the planet kind of narrative is what pushes people into even, in a lot of cases getting sicker. And I think that's the hardest part is that we are going against the grain here. We are going against, all of that. And I think that's what makes it so hard for us to get our point across.
Well, and I have a platform, and I speak at a lot of agricultural meetings, and I have been asked over the years, why don't you talk about carnivore more? And to me, it's like this wonderful secret that has helped me regain my health, and that when people ask, I will definitely coach them and guide them and help them, and that's why I so admire what you're doing is just blasting it out there to help as many people as possible. Kind of where I'm caught in is that I have so many friends in agriculture that raise all kinds of crops and products. And I never want to bash anyone else for what they grow and what they do on the land and how they make a living for their families. And if you can find health eating some way else, like that's wonderful for you. But for me, I found that the one size fits all dietary guidelines method was killing me. It was absolutely killing me. And so if you find yourself in this place where you're like, I don't feel well. And I've tried every diet and I've starved myself and worked out and counted every calorie and been on the salads and went plant-based and none of that works. That's exactly where I had landed. This is a great place to try where it's grounded in rich history of having worked. And there's so many carnivores out there now that are sharing their story compared to 10 years ago, that there are resources, there are people that will coach you and guide you and hold your hand along the way and remind you that, yeah, that steak is not going to kill you. And I think it's really cool to look back now a decade later and see how things have evolved and how this message has exploded and that people are hungry for that truth, for that nutritional information. And so it's just very exciting to see, because at the time when I stumbled upon it, it was rather lonely. I think Kelly Hogan was the only person out there on the internet talking about being carnivore and being pregnant, and what a blessing she was to me at that time.
Yeah, Kelly is a blessing to many of us, many of the time. Kelly is
Yes.
always there when somebody has a question. So let me ask you this. So one of the main ways they are trying to get people to not eat as much meat is by talking about the emissions. And
Yeah.
you mentioned that a few minutes ago. And so I know that you're very knowledgeable on this. So let's talk about that for a minute, because people really believe, which is insane to me, that cows are more dangerous than all of the factories and all of the plants that make the processed foods. Like, if we're going to get rid of something, it shouldn't be cows. It should be all the processed food plants that are clearly, you can see the smoke going up into the, I mean, that is obviously where so much of our trouble comes from. People want to say that cows are worse than that. So can you touch on that for a few minutes?
Yeah, I always want to say I don't see smog over my cattle ranch,
That's
but
okay.
okay. But isn't that funny though, and ironic that the government is saying that cows have to go and we have to tax them and regulate them out of existence, but they want to replace the cattle with buffalo? It's like there were more buffalo grazing the prairie in the early day of American history than there are cattle, on our lands today. And so where this all started from is the United Nations came out with a report in 2006 called Livestock's Long Shadow, and it blamed the lion's share of greenhouse gas emissions on beef cattle. And it was quickly debunked. And what we found out at that time was they were measuring the emissions for the beef, from everything from the emissions from the corn that was grown and harvested all the way to the refrigeration of that steak in the grocery store. So what were the emissions through the entire chain? And when they looked at transportation as an example in that study, they only measured the tailpipe emissions. So it was purposefully like skewed in a way that made cattle look maximum, the worst for maximum damage. But that was debunked. And I always say, a lie can travel halfway around the world before the truth ties its tennis shoes. But the truth is that the American beef producer is an environmental success story as far as stewardship of the land and our natural resources. So today's beef industry contributes less than 4% of total greenhouse gas emissions. If every American were to go meatless on Mondays, like so many of these politicians are trying to push, in fact, in New York City, the public school system does meatless Mondays. They do 2 meatless days in the public school system in New York City a week. So for 2 days of the week, they're taking nutrient-dense protein off the plate for these kids. And by the way, these kids in New York City, 75% of them qualify for free and reduced lunches. 10% of those kids are homeless. And these politicians are using climate change and putting that on the backs of these kids that just need access to nutrient-dense food. But that's like a whole nother soapbox. So what I tell people is if every American were to go meatless on Mondays, it would reduce our carbon footprint by 0.26%. So how ridiculous and arrogant of us to think I'm going to skip a cheeseburger to save the planet. But what I do tell people, if they are concerned about the environment, and which we all should be, we should all try to be better stewards of the land. And I could talk about the ways my family takes care of the land here in South Dakota. But we actually waste 40% of the food grown in this country. It ends up in landfills. And so we're really not respecting the harvest. Somewhere along the way, we've disconnected what we're growing and producing and the people that are going to bed hungry at night. 1 in 4 people go to bed hungry at night. And when the government steps in to help, they're giving them food stamps to buy things like cereal and orange juice and not as much of the meat, again, because of this agenda. And so it's interesting, but I think in the grand scheme of things, Our government knows and understands if we are a weak and sick society, they can control us. We will be, in that constant sick cycle, and that makes a lot of money too in the medical system. So what happens when an entire population decides I'm going to go eat counter to what the government's telling me to do? I'm going to eat the steak and put butter on top, and I'm going to reclaim my health. Now, all of a sudden, we're not a statistic. Now, all of a sudden, we're strong and our minds are sharp and we're thinking clearly and we're healthy. Now we're not such great money makers, and now we're not so easy to control. And so to me, eating beef, which, eating beef all the time, it's a little bit of a rebellion too. It's I'm going to be free. I'm going to eat steak and I'm going to be happy and I'm going to thrive. And that's what we're going to do.
Yeah, and I want to point out the numbers that you gave of the 4% of emissions coming from cows is actually from the EPA. That is not a skewed number that came from some carnivore study or anything like that. That number is from the Environmental Protection Agency. And so that,
and they're not going to boost it in our favor either, by the way.
Yeah, I know. Absolutely. And there is a chart. I will try to post it and put it here, but there is a chart from Sustainable Dish that shows the different amounts. And like, if the cow is down here, the factories and stuff are up here. Like, there is no debate on that. And even just common sense would tell you that that is not the case. And if you are worried about that, though, if you still believe that, and some of you probably do, and you're worried about that, then buy local, because then you're getting rid of the emissions that are being created by having the meat transported all around the country or all over the world. Yep. So if you still want to eat meat and you're just not sure what the best way to do that is, politically, environmentally, whatever, definitely buy local meat, because you're helping out a local farmer instead of one of the big companies. Mm-hmm. And that really is just the best way to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think about that. It's like, I realize to feed the world enough beef that it requires a lot of producers from all around the world to make it possible. But I think if you want to shop your values, and if you really care about environmental stewardship and you want to be really connected to the land, getting to know a local rancher is so beneficial, because it's not just like the way my family raises our cattle. They're born here in the spring. We wean them, we grow them up, we feed them out. They're processed 10 miles from home. Any ingredients or feeds that we buy, any hay that we put up, it's all done within a 10-mile radius of our home. Every time we're buying supplies for the cattle or things that we need on the ranch, it's done in town, right? 10 miles from home. And so we have a very tight circle of where our dollars go and where our local economy is. And so the steak isn't just supporting a family on the ranch, but it's also supporting all of these other businesses in these rural communities. And so I guess when the pandemic hit and things got really weird and the shelves were bare, it was a really cool opportunity to connect with people in town that I'd never talked to before, because all of a sudden they were like, I need to know a rancher, and can you be my rancher? It's like everybody wanted to be adopted by a rancher, and how cool it was. And I mean, I'm sad that we had to go through that to kind of experience that and show people you probably do need to be more connected to your food. But what an awesome opportunity it has been. And it's been so rewarding to fill people's freezers with beef. And I know that's the next thing your listeners are going to ask is, do we ship? And we don't ship right now. So we do just sell locally, but I would encourage everyone to find their own little farmer and get adopted and just make those trips out to the ranch and fill up your freezers. It's the most economic way to buy beef as well.
Yeah. And if you don't know how to do that, look on Facebook. Lots of the ranches are on Facebook. Google it. Google can be a huge friend in a situation like this. Almost everybody has a farm pretty much within driving distance. And if you're looking for somebody who does ship meat, we have a mutual friend, Tyler Duvall from Texas Beef House in White House, Texas, who recently did an auction for their beef, which went amazingly well for them and amazingly well for the customers. Let's talk about that for a minute, because you said he's going to do another one in December.
Yes. And before I forget, one other tip I would say for finding ranchers is you could reach out to your state cattlemen's association or your state beef council. They know every producer in your state. So if you just called up their office and said, hey, I'm looking to find a rancher, in my area, they would know every single person, and they would likely know who sells beef to direct. So I would encourage you just go straight to the source, or you can always reach out to me and I can help you find those connections to wherever you're at in the country. But Tyler Duvall at Texas Beef House in Capital Angus. I'm so grateful you interviewed him and got to visit with him. What a story his family has, and they're so hardworking, great family. They have a strong faith and a strong work ethic and a real commitment to producing beef for people to enjoy. They ship all across the country. And so they had this idea or this concept of going direct to the consumer in an auction style format where the buyer gets to choose the price. So essentially, people were able to be there in person on the ranch to see the cattle, to have a ranch tour, and to bid on the beef. But it was also online, and we had 800 people watching online. We ended up with 100 plus buyers from all across the country. We sold the equivalent of 4 beef animals on that sale, everything from summer sausage to hamburger to prime ribs and tomahawk steaks. And people showed up and in a big way. And this family had a great day of selling beef at a premium. But I also think their customers were just wildly excited to connect with a rancher and have that experience and have that beef delivered straight to their door. And so they're going to try it again. We have another auction planned for December 1st through the 3rd on cci.live. So it'll start on the 1st. There's 12 lots. They're a variety pack. So you'll get some, each one is a little different for the 12 days of Christmas, but there's steaks, there's short ribs, there's roast, tomahawks, ribeyes, all the things. And so 12 individual lots. You can get your bid in, on the 1st or 2nd, but the bidding closes on the 3rd at 3 p.m. And so then it becomes a horse race finish. So at 3 p.m. as it closes, if you are in on an item or on a lot, then you can be a part of this bid off. So every 2 minutes, it'll give you the opportunity to keep bidding until, the last man standing. And so it's kind of a cool new way to buy beef, and we're very excited about it. And yeah, the beef will be guaranteed delivery before Christmas. So it's a great time to stock up, to buy gifts for people. No one's going to be mad at you if you go give them a ribeye steak or a big old tomahawk for a Christmas gift. I promise you. But very excited about it. And folks can reach out to me if they have any questions about how to bid and to be a part of that really cool auction process.
That's awesome. And the farm is called Texas Beef House, and it's in White House, Texas. Great family. I did do an interview, like you mentioned, and he was super nice. Said it was his first interview ever. It did not seem like it was his first interview ever. He knows what he is doing. And like I said, it was just really great. So definitely support them if you can.
So what was really cool is I got to take Tyler to a meetup, which was, I've been a 10-year carnivore. I'd never been to a meetup until this summer. So in Illinois, we went to a meetup in August, and I took Tyler with, and I was like, you're going to talk to these people that all they do is eat beef. So they're going to love you, And so he was really great answering their questions. And then what was even more fun is we were in Illinois for a cattle sale. And so we invited all these carnivores out to this auction, and they got to hang out and look at the cattle and talk to all the producers. And so it was a really cool marriage of two things I really love and am passionate about.
Yeah, it's pretty cool because it all came full circle to me when I was talking to him during the interview, because I remember the pictures and stuff of you going to Karen's meetup. I remember that. And I remember that you brought somebody with you, but it wasn't until I was talking to him towards the end of our conversation that I realized that it was Tyler that you took with you. So it was right in the middle of this interview. I was like, oh, I know you. I mean, didn't really know, but
right,
I know who you are now. Amanda took you to that meetup. It was really funny just to have that full circle thing. Like, oh, this is him. So I think that's pretty cool.
Well, it was funny because we got out of that meeting and went to go head back to the cattle auction. And as we're in the truck, I was like, Tyler, I think they think we're married because my husband's name is Tyler. And so I was talking about stories of my husband and I on the ranch, Tyler, and so the whole time they thought that was my Tyler. You're a great Tyler, but you're not my Tyler. So
that's hilarious.
But yeah, it was a really cool thing. And I think Tyler's also trying out the carnivore thing now after that meetup. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it had been a while. He was doing great. He had added just a couple of vegetables back in, but for the most part, he's still carnivore and loving it.
Yep. And the crazy thing is he had no idea I was carnivore. So I got done with that meetup. I had given my testimony, he's like, I just didn't even know. I'm like, well, it's not like the first thing I lead with, but yeah. And he's like, do you feel good? I'm like, I can run circles around people. It's great. Like, you should definitely do this. So yeah, it's a lot of fun when all the pieces start coming together.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Amanda. This has been really great. I appreciate your time and I appreciate you being with us today.
Well, I think what you're doing is wonderful, and I'm very excited to try your tallow products too. Because as we discussed off air, I think it's wild that we're paying so much money for these plant-based skincare products when the natural remedy has been right in front of us the whole time. So I'm very excited to try them out, and I'll have to do an Instagram review or something when I get them in.
Thank you. That would be awesome. Okay. Again, thank you for joining us, and thank you. We'll see you next time here on the Carnivore Revolution.